So thanks a lot again, everyone, for coming along. As you know, today we're doing a special Pokedex app with our guest from Universidad Centroamericana. He's a DSC lead, so I'll just give a quick intro about Marcos. Marcos is a Flutter developer, and he's also DSC lead from, from Central America. So he'll be hosting today's hands-on workshop. He'll be making a Pokedex app and also going over some more interesting stuff in Flutter. So hopefully everyone enjoys. And again, there's a Kahoot at the end, so hope everyone stays for that. And with that said, I'll be passing it on to Marcos.
Okay, thanks. Hope everyone is doing okay. That was basically my intro. If you have any question, I will answer everyone in the chat. If you don't have the code, you can look at the chat too. And then basically I'm gonna share my screen. You need to enable the
I've done it.
sharing screen. Oh, okay, let me see. Okay, so we're having this screen. So I just want to say we have the code here. And basically what you need to do when you have the repo, you need to open your terminal and then run Flutter pub get to have all the dependencies that we're gonna use. And basically that's it. The workshop will be like working with a networking app. So we're gonna use an actual web service, an API. And that API, if you don't know, it's the Poke API. So it has like every Pokemon that has ever existed. And basically we're gonna take this API to make our Pokedex. So if you have any question, you can like write it on the chat. And I think there's like a raise hand option, so you can use that too. Okay, so we have our app running, and when you have your app running, you will see like a screen like this. And that's the basic home screen. Going through the project structure, you will see these three folders. One is for the API model that we're gonna use like to make cleaner code, you can say. And then, I mean, the next ones are pretty self-explanatory. You have a home screen in your screens folder. And then you have a widgets folder that has the like a placeholder for a widget we are going to be creating. That's a Poke card. And basically, the first file you want to take a look at, it's the main.dart. So main.dart does a really straightforward thing. It's like the main of the app that calls a method that's actually part of Flutter, and it takes the actual app that we're gonna build. And that's all. That's all you need to know about that file. So then, keeping that intro, we're gonna go to the app.dart file, and then we have our material app. So material app, it's the basic widget for creating an app. And if you know Flutter, it's like a cross-platform framework. So you can have your Android app and your iOS app. And material app is the one from material package. That's the one for Android, basically. I don't know if you have heard of material design, but that's the design language that Google is using. And so basically you can make, if you want a more like an iOS app, you can do Cupertino app, and Cupertino is the package for iOS. So we have our Pokedex app. That's a stateless widget. Basically, a stateless widget is, it's what it says, with a widget that doesn't have state. And we're gonna use stateful widgets too. That's the two kind of types in Flutter for widgets. And basically, we have these properties in the material app. We have our title, the theme. That's basically like design wise. You have a font family that you can look in the assets. You see the fonts here. If you need like to see like a bigger font, you can say it in the chat too. And if I don't see the chat, you can like interrupt me. I'm totally okay with that. And for the app, we only have one screen. So we're using like the home. That's basically the initial route of the app, the initial page. We're using the home screen. So we're gonna go to the home screen to see what's on it. And I left you a comment here that it's basically the variable we're gonna use for the API. And it's a pretty simple screen. You have a scaffold. That's a pretty common widget on Flutter. It basically lets you define the basic structure of a page. And then you have your background color. That's our theme's primary color. That's red. And then we have our body. That's basically a column that contains that Pokeball image that you can set. And then it contains a text that says, let's catch them all, shall we? So let's catch them all, shall we? And basically the first part of the app, I'm going to explain the models. That's a really important part. So we have a class called Pokemons that basically has the list of all the Pokemons we're going to fetch from the API. And we have a base Pokemon class. So in this app, you have two branches. I don't know if you know Git, but basically you have the master branch and you have the starter branch. The starter branch is a bit more simple, so you want to use that. So we have some basic files here. We have a sprites class that's basically the images that we're gonna show of the Pokemons, and we have API Pokemons that has the basic things we need to fetch the Pokemons. So we need an ID, a name, and some sprites to show image. And then basically we have a constructor for every object of Pokemon that we're creating, every Pokemon we're fetching from the API. And then we have a from JSON constructor that basically maps our JSON that comes from the API to our app. So the API sends a JSON that has ID, name, and sprites. So that's basically what we're gonna assign to the API Pokemon with this kind of constructor. And then we have our base Pokemon. Why do we have a base Pokemon and an API Pokemon? Basically, the API, the Poke API, when you fetch just by going like Pokemon and not giving it anything else, it gives you 20 items that are the result. And that's the first 20 Pokemon in the list. I'm gonna like zoom in. Yeah, so it gives you the actual object of Pokemon, and then it gives you a URL. So that URL, it's the one we're gonna call. We're gonna get the info of that Pokemon, and then that's the URL that has the API Pokemon class. So when we call that URL, we're receiving the actual sprites. So that's why we have two models for Pokemon, because the API is built that way. It's not like pretty cool, that part, but I mean, that's the way it is. So that's the models. So we're gonna work
Marcus,
on.
could
Yeah,
you just increase the size a bit? Some people I think having difficulty seeing.
yeah, sure.
Right.
Like that.
Um,
That's okay.
is that good? Oh, yeah, perfect.
I'm not actually. I just wanna check the chat. I don't know where it went.
I'll just let you know if anyone's asking something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. So we're gonna go on this part. I'm gonna remove every part of the body, and then we're gonna have like a red page, and then we're gonna set a property for the scaffold that's called app bar. So the app bar, it's basically the upper bar in the app. So if we set an app bar, we see that there's a really small line that has like a shade, an elevation, and that's the actual app bar. So that's a Flutter widget for Scaffold. And the app bar has a property called title. So in title, we're gonna use a widget called row because we want to set content horizontally, and then the row has children. Flutter is based on composition. That's a programming principle. So basically, you're gonna have like a really straightforward structure, a declarative structure. So you can set like we're gonna use image to set our first image that's called assets, and in assets we have images. I think that's the name. Yeah, images. And then images has Pikachu.png. So we have a bit of a problem there because we didn't set up like the height and the width of the image. So you can set like I don't know, like 50. That's the measure of this 50. It's like dots per inch. It's gonna vary for every device, so you wanna like test it. And then we have a Pikachu right there in the app bar. So that's what it does. And then we can set up another widget called text because we want to set up an actual title. And then text receives a string, so we're gonna call it Pokedex. And then we have the actual Pokedex there. And that's basically the title for the app. So I don't like the little shade that's beneath the app bar. So we're gonna set a property called elevation that actually sets that shade, and we're gonna set it to 0, so we can have an app bar without shade. Okay, so we have our background color. That's everything we need in that part. And then we're gonna set up the body of our scaffold. The body is everything that goes below the app bar. So we're gonna have a center, and we're gonna set up a text. You don't have to do that. I mean, you can just like have the app bar, and that's all. I'm just going to do that as a placeholder. So let's say Pokemons go here. And then we have our text. I don't know if you can see it. So I'm gonna set up a style for that text. We're gonna increase the font size. And then you have Pokemons go here. So what I wanna do with this, it's use this property. We're gonna copy and then paste it in the actual widget, so we can actually have it there if we need it. And then we're gonna create a stateful widget. And if you have, there's this extension called, if you have DSCode, you have this extension called Flutter and Dart. They're like super important for this example actually. And then we have, if we like command dot this stateful widget, we can see that there's an action for it to convert it to a stateful widget. So if anyone has wants to have a time to install that extension and actually make do that part, you can tell me. So now we have a stateful widget. And what's going on with the stateful widget? What's the difference with the stateless widget? Well, you can actually say like, oh, so this widget actually has state. And so we have a method that we need to override. That's the create state one. And the create state basically creates a state class for the home screen. So you can see that home screen state is created, and then it actually extends from the state class. That's the home screen type. So this actually creates the state that we're gonna use around the app. And I mean, that's, I don't know if you have any questions about that, but with the state, we actually can define variables that are gonna change around in some part of the app. That's actually, we want to set some Pokemons. So we're gonna use the Pokemons class that we created in the models. And we're gonna set up a variable called Pokemons. So now Pokemons, as you may know from other languages, it's starting in null because we haven't set up like, we didn't do this. That's basically the initialization, or like the part where we actually declare the variable. So we're gonna set it to null because we need to do some validation if it's null. And then we're gonna have an actual method that's the one that's gonna fetch the data from the API. So we're gonna call it fetch data. And fetch data is an interesting part of this app because it's gonna make an HTTP request that's actually gonna get the data. So if you don't know HTTP, it's an internet protocol that we use to interact with APIs. That's basically the thing you need to know for this workshop. So if you're gonna make an HTTP request, it means you're gonna do an async function. What I mean by async, it's that you're gonna make an asynchronous function that's gonna ask for data, and then it's gonna wait for that data, and then assign that data to our Pokemon's variable. So if you want to create an async function in Dart, you're gonna use that keyword that's async. And then we're gonna actually do the request. So we have we're gonna declare a final variable that's going to be our response from the API. And then we're gonna await for that data. And here's when we actually do the actual request. So we're gonna use a package I set up in the project that's called HTTP. So we're gonna write HTTP from there. So it doesn't work. So I'm gonna package. You go to HTTP, and then there's a file called http.dart. That's the file that we're gonna use. And basically that's the package there are other packages in Flutter if you want to do HTTP requests, but that's the basic one and the one we're gonna use, the most used actually. And we're gonna declare it as HTTP. That's an actually a good practice if you know Flutter. You know, if you use a package, you want to set an alias for it to actually know where is the method that you're calling. So we have HTTP, and HTTP, if we use it here, we have a method that's called get, um, and basically that's the method we need. So we're gonna have we're gonna use home screen, and home screen has a static property that we can actually get if we even if we don't declare a home screen object. So if you write home screen dot, you have access to the static const string URL. That's the one that we declare here. So basically, we're doing the request, the HTTP request there, and that's where we're gonna get the response. If you see this, what get returns, it's a feature that's basically, if you know JavaScript, that's like a promise. If you don't know JavaScript, feature is an asynchronous value. So what you actually get is a response, and the feature is just like a type we use if we want to get an asynchronous value. So basically, when we actually call this function, we get a future response, and then await actually cast that future from the type future response to the type response, and then we assign it here. And you can see Dart is really smart with inferring types, so we can see that response actually it's gonna handle an actual HTTP response. So we have that. And then what we're getting from the API is a JSON. So we're gonna create a variable called like DSCode. Okay, so we have DSCode, and DSCode is gonna be a variable that we're gonna JSON DSCode. That's a library actually from the Dart language, and we have JSON. And if you can see, JSON was imported here from a library called Dart Convert. So Dart Convert, as you can read here, encoders and decoders for converting between different data representations, including JSON. That's what we need to actually cast that data to Dart objects. So we're using that. And then we're decoding that data, and that data comes from response.body, and that's what we need. So the response has a body and some headers. We're not using headers, so we only need the body. And then we decode that data and store it in the decode variable. And then we have our last variable that we're gonna use, and that's data. So data, if you remember, we created Pokemons, and Pokemons has a constructor called from JSON. So basically, this is not a JSON anymore because we have already decoded from the JSON codec. So this is actually a Dart map right now, but we're using the JSON terminology because it's basically the same. I mean, it's the same structure. So we have this decode, and if you can see, decode is now a map. So a map has keys and values. So we need to know which value we need. So when we actually call the API in this URL, I think that's Pokemon. So we submit it and we have this. So every Pokemon, it's returned in this results object. So we're gonna go to decode, and then we're gonna use results. That's the one storing the Pokemons, the actual Pokemons. And that's basically what our constructor is gonna receive, and what the constructor is gonna cast from a map to an actual Pokemon's variable. Then we have the cool part of Flutter and stateful widgets. Stateful widgets are needed when you need to have some variables that are, which values have to change in some time. So we want Pokemons to actually have Pokemons. And then there's a function for the UI to reload when we have that. But first, we're gonna like print data just to make sure we're getting the info. So we're not calling this method in any part of the code. You can see the declaration of fetch data is in reference. So we're gonna use a method that stateful widgets have. That's the init state method. Basically, you can call the function here. It's better to call it here than in build, because build can run every time. So if you call it in on build, basically every time it does the set state function that we're gonna use later, it's gonna reload. So we're gonna fetch data to see what happens. So I'm gonna restart the app and just set up the debug console here to see what's going on. And then I'm gonna clear the console, restart the app, and you can see we're getting an instance of Pokemons. So yeah, we're getting an instance of Pokemons, but I wanna know what's in it. And basically, I think that method is gonna return like okay, that's the same. So we're gonna use instance of Pokemons, we're gonna print the Pokemons, and then it's gonna reload the app. And then we have a list of instance of base Pokemons. That's the actual type of the list of Pokemon. So we're getting the Pokemons. That's what I wanted to show you. And that's our API request. I don't know if you have questions right now, so we can check them out. Okay.
No questions at the moment.
Okay, so yes. Everybody's like doing exactly what they should, so that's okay. So we're gonna first we're gonna like do a simple widget here. We're gonna do a widget called list view. Well, now we have a list, so we can actually do this. And list view has
Marcus, quick question. Someone asked, is it not best if you call super.init state at the top?
Okay, so basically, if you call super.init state at the top, you're basically setting the super before you actually call the function. So it's better if you set it earlier, because sometimes okay, let me like try to explain. This is like a kind of complicated topic. Okay, so basically you're calling the actual class that's the state class, like I don't actually remember how to say it in English, but it's like the parent class.
Inheritance,
the class. Yeah, that's inheritance. So you're calling the parent class. That's the one home screen state. It's extending from. So if you call the fetch data before, you're making sure you're passing the right function to that class when you're actually calling init state. So I don't know if that was clear. Yeah, let me know. I mean, we can totally talk more about that.
Yeah, they got it. Great.
Okay, cool. So we have I was at the list view. So list view has you can actually do a list view like that, but I mean, we don't know actually uh, the well, we know because we have the API. We know the API, and we know the API returns 20 items by default. But sometimes we don't know how many items the list is returning. So we're gonna use an special constructor for the list view that's called builder. So builder has two parameters that we need. The first one is item count. So item count will be Pokemons dot Pokemons. That's the one we actually need. And then that's a list. So we need the length of the list. And then we have the item builder. The item builder receives a context. That's the first parameter of that callback. And then it has like a index. So the index of the element we're using. So that part, okay. So basically, yeah, Pokemon it's called on node. So we're gonna return uh, a widget called list style. That's the one we use with list view. And then we only need like the title, and we're gonna like we're gonna set this variable like final Pokemon. That's an individual Pokemon. And then we have Pokemons, the Pokemons, and then we have the index. That's the one we need. So we have Pokemon, and then we can go to the name. And we're gonna solve this error that's happening here. That's because when we actually start we build the home screen, we have the Pokemons in null. So that's gonna throw an error that's in null. So we're gonna use I don't know if you have this kind of knowledge from another language, but we're gonna use something called ternary operator. So ternary operator, it's basically an if simplified. So we're gonna check if Pokemons are equal to null. And that's the Boolean expression that we're gonna need. And then we add a question mark. And then the first thing after the question mark, it's gonna be the thing we need to return if the Pokemons are actually null. So what we're gonna return, it's a center widget that has a child called circular progress indicator. So we can tell the user that it's loading. So it's basically an indicator that something is loading on screen. And then we set the other value. That's the one showing if the Pokemons are not null. I mean, it's the one we're showing if the Boolean expression that if Pokemons are actually null, uh, the one that's gonna show up if that expression is false. So we're gonna set I don't know how that symbol is called actually. I don't remember, but basically that's what we need. So we're gonna set a value color that's an always stop animation. I mean, that's okay. animation color, it's always stop animation of type color. I think that's the way. Yeah. So we're gonna pass colors dot white. Yeah, so we can actually see the indicator. So we said that because the actual progress indicator is an animation. So we need to set up a always stop animation. And the type is color because we need to set up a value color. But the color is an animation. So we basically need that for showing that. So by default, the indicator is I think the accent color is the one. Well, you can actually go to the docs, to the Flutter docs, and then you can check which value has the value color. I think by default for the theme, it's like the primary color, I believe. So that's why that was red. So we need to restart the app to actually see our changes. So we see it's loading and then nothing happens. Let me see. Okay, that's because we're not setting the data. We can see the value of the variable data is in use. So that's where set state comes to place. So set state is a function for stateful widgets. You can use set state on stateless widgets, and you actually set the state. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a function that we use to actually assign data and see it refreshing on the UI. So we're gonna use Pokemon, and Pokemon is gonna be equal to data. And that's basically what we're gonna set in our state. When we have our Pokemon, we're gonna set the Pokemon to the actual variable on the state. So we have that. And then we're gonna restart the app for it to run again. And then we have the names of the Pokemon, and that's our list. So we actually are using the data from the API. And we're gonna set, we're gonna use another widget for this. So this is where we're gonna use our Pokecard. And the Pokecard, it's a really basic widget. I set up the actual card. And this was basically a placeholder. So we can actually set up a stateless widget. If you have the Flutter extension, you can just write ST, and then you can autocomplete with stateless W, that's stateless widget. So you can create it like that. And then we have our Pokecard. So we're gonna use that. And then we're gonna have this variable that we're gonna actually use on the widget. And then we can set it here. So we need to import our material package for stateless widget to actually work. And then we need to set up our poke URL variable on the actual constructor. So we have it there, and we can work from there. So what we actually need in this Pokecard, we need to create that's actually a stateful widget, because I told you there are actually two requests to the API. The one that brings us the names and the basic Pokemons, and the one that actually returns us the sprites. So we need to make another request, the same thing that we did in the last one. So I don't know why this is actually, okay, I think it was that error. Yeah. So we're gonna convert it to a stateful widget. And then we're gonna use like basically the same function from the same fetch data function. I'm gonna go a little bit quickly in that part because we're we already know what that does. And then we need our http.dart file. We're gonna use as http. Then we have the response, and we're gonna use, now it's not Pokemons because it's individual. So we're gonna use API Pokemon, and we're gonna set Pokemon. Yeah. So basically this part, when you have a variable in your stateful widget and not your state, you can access the variables on the stateful widget with the widget keyword. So the widget keyword goes to this class, and I'm gonna remove that. So we can go to the Poke URL by accessing the widget. Then we're gonna import JSON from Dart convert, and we're gonna set up Pokemon. And data is type Pokemon, so we need some API Pokemon. That's the one we're gonna use right now. And then that's it. We're gonna create our init state, and that's the same. We're gonna fetch data. And this is the part where we actually make the card. So it's a Poke card, so there's a widget for that called card. And then card has a child. Also, we're gonna check the same. If Pokemon is equal to null, we're gonna return center. And this time we can actually have the default color for circular progress indicator because it's red and the card will be white. So we don't actually need to change the color. And then we're gonna have a column. Okay, so we already use row. So column, it's basically, row it's for horizontal objects and column is for vertical objects. That's the difference. So it has a children also. And we're gonna use an actual, I don't know if I included this package. No, I didn't. So we're gonna use an image to show the actual sprite. And we're gonna use, we had an asset for the Pikachu one, but this one comes from an API. So we're gonna use a network image. And then we're using basically the Pokemon, and Pokemon has sprites. So sprites, we're gonna use front default. Yeah. So that's the image we're gonna fetch from the API. And then we have a text. We're gonna use text, and the data. Yeah, there was a question.
I know, I think someone accidentally unmuted.
Okay, cool. So we have the Pokemon name, and that's the same. So we're gonna use this. Let's see how that goes. We're not using actually the Poke card. So we're gonna change this a little bit, and then we're gonna remove the list view builder. Sorry, we're not using that widget. We're using another widget, really pretty similar to list view, but it's gonna be a grid. So we're gonna use Gridview. And basically Gridview acts similar to a list view, but the different part is that you actually have a number of columns that and rows that are gonna set up the items. So here we have a linear list of items in the vertical axis. So Gridview is gonna set whatever amount of columns in the x-axis to actually display those items. So we're gonna use a method called count, because we want to set up the actual quantity of the items, we're gonna use 2. So in that part, we're gonna create the children of this grid, and we're gonna use list, and list has a method to actually generate a list. And that method receives a length that we're gonna use. It's Pokemons dot Pokemons. Oh yeah, Pokemons, and then length. So we're having that, and the index, the builder actually returns null. So we don't have any items yet, but we're gonna create the Poke card. We're gonna use the Poke card, and the Poke card receives a URL. So what we're gonna use as the URL, it's actually the Pokemon. Poke URL will be Pokemons, and then, so here we have the actual item, and we're gonna set the index. So we have access to every Pokemon object. So every Pokemon object has their URL, so we can use it right there. And if we refresh, we're gonna have an error. Okay, basically, we're gonna restart the app just to make sure everything works without a problem. This is a good time if you have any questions of the widgets or the API part. I mean, it's okay if you want to ask something. Okay, so we're gonna stop the app. Some errors in Flutter are actually gonna make you restart the app from the top. So that's one of them. Yeah. Then I think what's left is just like decorating the actual UI. But I mean the functionality, it's done from here. Okay, so I see. It actually, it doesn't need results here, because that's the one, that's the error we're getting. So when we actually paste the fetch data function, API Pokemon just returns the object that we need to JSON to decode from JSON. So we don't need results. And if we actually restart the app from there, we can have our Pokemons. Yeah. So there we go. And I think we're gonna actually like remove that Pokemon font, so we can actually see better those names. So basically that's our basic app working. Then we have our 21st Pokemon. So I don't know, guys, but I think the actual card, it's like a bit ugly, I can say. So we're gonna like make it better. So if you see the items on that column that's actually showing that part are actually really close to the top. So column has a property called main axis alignment. So main axis alignment is the alignment for the y-axis. That's the main axis for the column. So we have those right here. So we can do center, and we're gonna see the Pokemons actually go to the center of the card. And then I think this card, I mean, it looks good, but I think it's really close to the edges. So we're gonna use a widget called padding. So we're gonna do a code action, and we're gonna wrap it with a padding. Then, so padding has a child and has a property called padding. Uh, that property needs some edge insets geometry type. So we create a constant called edge insets, and we set all the edges of the object to be padded. So we're gonna reload, and we see that the cards are no longer close to the edges. So that's a way to actually have better UI from Flutter. And I don't know, you have any questions? I think you're actually pretty quiet. I don't know if you actually don't understand anything, or you like really into it, and I don't know.
Okay, we can ask. Does anyone want to say anything, or you can even put it in the chat? How you guys finding this? Are you following along pretty good? Even 1 to 2 people, if you want to put it in the chat, so Marcus knows that someone's watching.
Yeah.
Someone said, "Love from India. You guys are doing great. We have thanks. Really cool, and it's going great. So pretty good."
Okay. Can you
And some,
explain the Pokecard to us?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So actually, we did pretty good, I think, with the example. I mean, the time is like really good. So I'm gonna explain like the API so you can actually know why we're doing some requests from the home screen, and why we actually do another request from the Pokecard. So the API, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like this API because we actually don't get the Pokemon from the first part. I mean, I get it. We actually, I mean, it's not a great API for a simple example because you actually need to do 2 requests. But I get it, because if you're gonna return a huge list of Pokemon, you don't want a lot of info in that actual request. So it's cool if you set up a URL for the developer on the front end to actually make another request. So we actually get these 20 Pokemons that are uh, basic, 2 basic strings that are gonna be the name and the URL if we actually want to get the data of that Pokemon. So if we put, okay, let's erase from here. Then we have Pokemon. Okay, so we're gonna submit, and we can check that's the resource for Bulbasaur. So we get another kind of info that if you check the master branch of the repo, you can see all of these classes that actually represent this all of these objects. But basically, the info that we need are the sprites that are actually raw image of every Pokemon. That's the one we fetch then with image.network. And then we have, let me see. Well, the basically we make another request um, to have the sprites, because the actual data we already got it when we did the first request for the from the API. So Pokecard basically makes the same thing Hum does, but for one specific Pokemon. So we sent the Poke URL to the Pokecard, and that's the URL of one specific Pokemon. So when we fetch data, we do it by calling that URL, and we're getting this data. And then we decode it, and then we assign it to the actual Pokemon variable that we have on the card. That's the same in home screen. So here we do the same. We just return so many Pokés, yeah. And we only return a padding with the card, and then when we actually have the Pokemon information, we display the column with that card, and we show the image, the sprite of the Pokemon we fetch, and then we actually display the name of that Pokemon. Yeah, so I don't know if that was clear. You can say. Okay. Just one quick, like a little, adjustment. We have, okay, let me introduce you to the basic configuration file for a Flutter project. You can actually go to the pubspec.yaml, and then you can see the basic info of the project. You can see the name, description, version, the Dart environment we use, and then we have the packages. So we have the HTTP package. You already used it. And we also have the international package. Okay, why did I include the international package? So this is optional. I mean, it says optional. And that's because we have a function in the international package that actually it's called like beginning, I don't know. Okay, just let me copy and then delete this. Beginning of sentence case. Okay, you're gonna see what it does. We just gonna pass the Pokemon name there, and we're gonna refresh. And if you take a quick look there, we now have the the actual first letter of the word in uppercase. Yeah, that's actually why I included this package. It's like a really nitpicky thing, but I mean, if you want like the name of the Pokemon to be in the first letter with uppercase. Yeah, so oh yeah, okay. Okay, so I don't know if there's another question. That's basically the whole Pokédex example.
Cool. Is there any questions? Does anyone have any questions for Marcos?
Yeah, you can ask like everything you want, like about Flutter. I mean, not exactly this actual project and sample. Okay.
Oh, we got a question.
Okay.
How did you start with Flutter?
How did I start with Flutter? Okay. There's a really great course. I'm gonna check that here. No sponsor, by the way. It's called App Brewery. Yeah, App Brewery. Actually, this course was free for like I don't know how much time. I think we're gonna check if this is actually free. Okay, this course is no longer available. Okay. Oh, okay, so we have this one. Okay, so now it's paid. Yeah, but it's, well, it's $10. It's not like really expensive. But I mean, this is a great starter if you want to check Flutter. There are a lot of good examples, and I think it's a great way to actually get started. And also, I'm gonna give you some advice, not only for Flutter but in programming in general. There is this page called flutter.dev, and then there's this tab called docs. That's the best way to start with Flutter. Actually, read the docs. That's my advice. Yeah. And if you want some hands-on experience, you can check a course on Flutter. And there's a lot of resources actually on YouTube. There's this Flutter developer expert called Pawan Kumar, and he has a channel called MTech Viral, and he makes a lot of Flutter tutorials. So you can check that as well. This is free. So if you actually want something free, you can check all the Flutter tutorials for that channel. Yeah. Yeah, Angela Yu is really good. Okay, can you show somehow convert a Flutter app into a web app? Okay, so Flutter, it's actually web. It's on beta right now, so you can't actually do a. It's not recommended to do a web app with Flutter right now, but if you're on dev channel, right now I am on stable. The current version of Flutter is version 1.20.1. I'm sorry, I said point. Well, almost always say that, but Spanish is pretty confusing with English sometimes. So the current stable version is Flutter 1.1.20.1. And if you go to dev channel, that's the stable one. But if you go to dev, you can enable web, and then you're gonna have another folder called web here. If you actually take a look, you have Android, and that's a full-fledged Android app, and you have iOS, and that's a full-fledged iOS app. You have your Swift files and all of that. So actually, if you enable Flutter Web, you can run it on Chrome. That's the default browser you're gonna create. So I'm just gonna, well, that's the okay. So we can see here. I think it's on samples and tutorials. Let me see. Oh, so here it is. So on Get Started, you go to building a web app, and then you can check what I told you. So here you have the setup. So you have to change to Flutter channel beta or dev. I believe it's now on dev, and run Flutter config enable web. And then basically you only need to Flutter run your app on Chrome like this. Yeah, basically that's what you need to do. And then like check the responsive part. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Anyone else have any other questions? Cool. I guess that's all for now. Thanks a lot, Marcos, for sparing the time to be with us. For everyone who doesn't know, it's like 2 a.m. where he's doing this from, so pretty late. So special thanks to Marcos for sparing the time to do the hands-on workshop. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And if everyone wants to just thank Marcos as well, that would be great.